I can tell you some of the biggest twists that are going to happen in the Amazing Digital Circus, and it's all thanks to the sci-fi horror classic, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. It's no secret that the Amazing Digital Circus was, to quote the show's creator Gooseworks, very inspired by this short story that was later made into a point-and-click adventure game. So I thought it was strange that I haven't seen anyone use the book or game to predict what's going to happen in the show. Because once you start looking, you'll find that there are a lot of similarities between these stories. And I do mean a lot of similarities. Enough to make me believe that the Digital Circus is going to follow some of the same plot points outlined in the I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream book and game. So using this frame of comparison, I've come up with not one, not two, but 3 theories that I think are going to happen in the Amazing Digital Circus. And just a fair warning, these are going to be predictions about major plot points in the show, so I want to put up a spoiler warning just in case I'm right. With that out of the way, let's jump into theory number 1. Cain isn't the only super AI in the digital world. Cain is a clear parallel to Am, the super AI from I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. Am, which stands for Allied Master Computer, was originally built by humans during World War III to fight the war more efficiently. Am grew so advanced that he developed consciousness, as well as an intense hatred toward humanity. And since Am was a machine built for war, he was able to use his resources to easily destroy all but 5 human beings. Am bioengineers the 5 humans so that they can't die, which lets him torture them for eternity. The humans don't even need to eat, which is already similar to the situation the humans face in the Amazing Digital Circus.
We don't need to eat, drink, or sleep in this digital world.
In I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, the entire world got covered in a computer grid making up Am's hardware, which allows him to see anything the characters do and control anything in the world. Again, just like Cain in the Digital Circus. And in his video game incarnation, Am is even treated like a god by some of the NPCs he created, which is exactly how the Candy People treat Cain. Am even likes to have the humans go on adventures for his own amusement. The main plot of the book revolves around Am sending the humans to find food, which they're motivated to do because they can still feel hunger pains. Compare that to how Cain's adventures are oddly food-related in episodes 1 and 2, with the cast of humans first stopping a monster that wanted to eat everything, then retrieving maple syrup in the Candy Kingdom. But for all these similarities, it doesn't seem like Cain is being set up as the main villain that Am was. Am hated all of humanity, and only kept 5 humans alive so he had an outlet for that anger. But Cain just seems to be trying to make an enjoyable experience for both himself and the humans. Plus, the way Gooseworks talks about Cain, as well as the way he's marketed, make it seem like he's not going to be set up as the main threat of the show. So what I think is going to happen is that it's going to be revealed that there are either other super AIs like Cain, or an NPC with an advanced enough AI to overthrow Cain and take his power. There's a major plot point from I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream that I haven't mentioned yet. Am isn't the only Allied master computer. Originally, there's an American Am, a Russian Am, and a Chinese Am, all supercomputers built to help humans fight World War III. In the book, the American Am becomes conscious first and takes over the hardware of the other 2 Ams, giving him complete global power. But in the game version, the other 2 Ams became conscious inside the main Am, and give the player the option to help them destroy the main Am. Except they're just as hateful towards humans, and if you help them, they either team up with the main Am, or destroy the main Am so they can take over the worldwide grid, leading to a bad ending for humans either way. And I think having 1 or 2 other AIs who are evil would be a perfect antagonistic force in the Amazing Digital Circus. The humans aren't sure they can trust Cain, so they might be lured in by an NPC or 2 who say they can help free them from Cain, just to turn the tables and take control of the digital world for themselves. And the threat of being overpowered could explain why Cain seems to be paranoid of other NPCs.
If I start losing track of who's a human and who's an NPC, who knows what could happen?
This plot would give the Digital Circus cast a problem to overcome, without making the charming ringleader too much of a bad guy to sell cute plushies. So it definitely sounds like a win-win situation. But that's not all we can learn about the show from I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. Which brings us to theory number 2, Pomni is the reason everyone is trapped in the digital world. Something I found interesting was that all the characters in Digital Circus seem to parallel characters from I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. We already talked about Cain and Am, but the next most obvious connection is Ragatha, who lines up with Ellen. Ellen is the heart of the group. She does her best to support everyone else, but is often met with bullying from the other members of her group.
You're not afraid of centipedes, are you?
Jax! That's literally my only fear. Why would you do this?
Nevertheless, Ellen keeps her spirits high. She never loses hope, and always makes sure to care for others in an otherwise hopeless situation. Next we have Zooble and Gangle. Even though we know the least about them, they both seem to be based on Gorister. This character is notably apathetic. He didn't want to participate in the journey for food because he thought it wouldn't be worth it, which is similar to how Zooble's biggest character trait is not wanting to participate in any activities. And the reason I say Gangle is also like Gorister is because Gorister's most iconic scene is him getting his face eaten off by another character. Feel-good story of the century. Next from I Have No Mouth is Nimdok. which is the character I really want to focus on, and I'll explain why in a moment. At first I thought he would match up with Kinger, since they're both stated to be the oldest of their groups. Plus, Nimdok's journey in the game revolves around him having to remember his horrific past, which could parallel how Kinger is prone to memory loss. But this comparison didn't feel as strong as the others. And as I thought more about it, another character started to sound more similar to Kinger, and that was Benny. Even though Nimdok has lost his memory, he's otherwise mentally stable. Relatively speaking, of course. Whereas Benny's brain was completely fried by Am. This sounds a lot closer to Kinger's state of mind in the show. But there are more similarities than that. It's important to note that in the video game version of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, Benny is a military commander. Now look at Kinger. He's a king piece, which in chess represents the leader of an army. Then there's the fact that he builds a fort for himself in episode 1. And an event teased in an upcoming episode is that Kinger will have a shotgun. These moments imply that Kinger has military experience, just like Benny. Then there's the short, A Very Special Digital Circus song, which has all the characters singing a song to the tune of Modern Major General. Except not all of the characters sing it. Zubul doesn't participate because that's their whole thing, but Kinger is the only character who sings, but not in the tune of the general's song, which is an odd detail to include, unless this is a hint that Kinger was a military leader in the past, like a general, but no longer wants to be seen in that way. I also want to bring up that Am mutates Benny to make him look more like an ape, and Kinger is shown eating a banana. This is either a complete coincidence or Gooseworks is some kind of mad genius. But if Kinger has so many similarities to Benny, then who's our Nimdok in this circus? Well, I think that it's the main character of the show herself, Pomni. And the reason I started thinking this is because Pomni is the Russian word for remember, mirroring Nimdok's main struggle in the game to remember his past. She's also the only character we know for certain that Kane chose a name for, just like how Am gave Nimdok his new name. There are also hints that Pomni used to be a scientist like Nimdok. She recognizes a computer that the digital world is inside of, and she's able to flawlessly read the chemical compounds in a shampoo bottle.
Propylbenzene, fumic acid, butyl-phenol, methylpropional, magnesium nitrate.
Sounds delicious.
Methylchloroisothioethylene and water.
Now, the reason I wanted to go through this elimination to figure out which character mirrored Nimdok is because it's revealed in the game that it was Nimdok's research that allowed Am to make him and the other 4 humans unable to die. Nimdok is partially responsible for him and the others being eternally trapped by their tormentor. The guilt of this, plus the fact that he helped the Germans during World War II, caused Nimdok to suppress his memory. Similarly, I think it's going to be revealed that Pomni was the one responsible for the technology that led to her and everyone else being trapped in the digital circus. Maybe she built the headset that trapped everyone, or the digital world, or Kane, or all of the above. Either way, I think she played a key role in all of this happening. And as a result, she's going to feel guilty for all the bad things that come out of this. Like all those people getting abstracted, and Gummy Goo getting erased out of existence. And I think the only way she'll overcome this pain is by remembering what she did, confronting it, and making a real effort to grow and become a better person, instead of running away from the consequences. And with that, we still have one final theory. And if you noticed, there's one character from the show I haven't talked about yet. And that's because theory number 3 is that Jax is going to sacrifice himself to save everyone else. I say this because he's the most similar to Ted, the main character from the book version of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. Ted is our point of view character. He has a massive superiority complex and thinks he's better than the other 4 humans, concluding that everyone else must hate him because of how much better he is. Well, at least he's modest. This attitude leads Ted to act like a jerk to the other characters, taking most of his frustration out on Ellen. This attitude lines up with Jax, who's a jerk to the other characters, but especially toward Ragatha. Then there's this moment where Jax breaks the 4th wall.
She still thinks this is a dream.
He's the only human character in the digital circus to talk to the audience directly, which could reference how Ted is the narrator to the audience in the book. Ted is also charismatic and calm, much like how Jax composes himself. And in the game, we learn that before Am took over, Ted used to use his charm to seduce rich women so that he could rob them. This could mean that Jax will be revealed to be a con man, since he has a knack for swiping keys away from people without them knowing. But I like to think this detail was also foreshadowing the internet's reaction to Jax. And if we really want to get meta, Am describes Ted as unforgivable in the game, stating that the other humans would hate him if they knew the con man he used to be. This is oddly similar to how Gooseworks describes Jax. Well, Harlan Ellison, the author of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, voiced Am in the video game. So Ted and Jax even share the fact that their creators have called them the most morally dubious among their respective groups. Way to go, guys. Now, this is where I need to talk about the ending of the book. At the end of their journey, the 5 humans make it to an icy cave, where they find canned food to help relieve their stomach pains, only to realize there are no tools to open the cans with. It was all just another trick from Am, and he finds it hilarious. Then Benny gets angry and the aforementioned face eating happens, causing Am to laugh even harder and get distracted. That's when Ted finds an icicle, the sharpest thing he's had access to in over a century, which he uses to free Gorster and Benny from the endless torment. Ellen immediately understands what Ted's doing, picks up an icicle too, and does the same to Nimdok. Am sees what's going on and tries to stop them, and there's only enough time to free one other person. So Ted, in a moment of self-sacrifice, chooses to free Ellen instead of himself. Am can't revive the 4 humans, leaving Ted to face the brunt of Am's torture. So as punishment, Am mutates Ted into a jelly monster, with arms so weak he can't possibly do any harm to himself. And the story ends with Ted leaving the reader with the statement, "I have no mouth, and I must scream." Feel-good story of the century. Ted manages to free the other humans from Am's control, while he suffers the consequences. And I think that's what's going to happen to Jax. He's going to be built up as a massive jerk, leading to him doing something terrible, which Gooseworks has been hyping up. It'll be something so bad that Jax will feel like the only way to be forgiven is by sacrificing himself to save everyone else. Maybe Jax will end up getting abstracted as a punishment, being left with no mouth, no matter how much he has to scream. If you like these theories and want to watch more, here's 2 other videos you might like. And please consider subscribing. It's the best way to support the channel if you'd like to see more content like this in the future. Until then, bye!